Marcus Kane pressed his face against the small window of the transport shuttle and watched Nexus Station grow larger in front of him. The massive space station looked like a giant metal flower with dozens of arms reaching out in all directions. Each arm was big enough to hold 3 city blocks. Ships of every size and shape were docked along those arms like bees on a hive, Marcus had seen many space stations in his 30 years as a smuggler, but Nexus Station was different. It was the biggest trading post in this part of the galaxy. Aliens from dozens of different worlds came here to buy and sell everything from rare metals to exotic foods. The station was run by the Valdari Consortium, a group of tall, blue-skinned aliens who thought they were better than everyone else. The shuttle pilot, a short green alien with 4 arms, spoke without turning around. "First time at Nexus Station?" "Human? No," Marcus said. His voice was rough from years of breathing recycled air on old ships. "Been here before." That was true, but not the whole truth. Marcus had been to Nexus Station 5 times in the past 10 years. Each time he had been smuggling something the Valdari did not want on their station. Medical supplies to rebel colonies. Weapons to freedom fighters. Information that could hurt the wrong people. Marcus was good at his job because he knew how to blend in and stay quiet. The shuttle docked at one of the smaller arms of the station. Marcus grabbed his single bag and followed the other passengers through the airlock. The main corridor of Nexus Station was enormous. The ceiling was so high that small clouds formed near the top. Hundreds of different aliens walked along the wide paths. Some were tall and thin like walking sticks. Others were short and round like living rocks. A few floated in the air using technology Marcus did not understand. Marcus walked slowly and kept his head down. Humans were not rare at Nexus Station, but they were not common either. Most aliens saw humans as a young species that had only recently learned how to travel between stars. The Valdari especially looked down on humans. They called them the scavenger race because humans often used old or broken technology that other species had thrown away. Marcus did not mind being looked down on. It made his job easier when people thought he was stupid. He found the small cafe where Rebecca Torres had told him to meet her. The cafe was in a quiet section of the station where the lights were dimmer and fewer security cameras watched the area. Rebecca was already sitting at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a cup of something hot. She looked up when Marcus approached. "You came," she said. Her voice was tired and full of worry. Marcus sat down across from her. Rebecca Torres was in her 40s with short brown hair and lines around her eyes that made her look older. She wore the simple clothes of a colony worker, but Marcus could see the desperation in the way she held herself. "You said you had a job for me," Marcus said quietly. "What kind of job?" Rebecca looked around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned forward. "My colony is dying," she whispered. "New Terra, in the Outer Rim. We have 2,000 people there, including 500 children. 3 months ago, people started getting sick. It began with just a few, but now half the colony is infected." Marcus had heard this story before. Colonies in the Outer Rim often faced diseases that Earth doctors had never seen. "What kind of sickness?" "The doctors do not know," Rebecca said. "It starts with tiredness and headaches. Then people cannot eat. Their skin turns pale. If we do not find medicine soon, they will all die." She paused and took a shaky breath. "Including my daughter Emma. She is only 8 years old." Marcus felt something tighten in his chest, but he kept his face blank. Getting emotional was dangerous in his line of work. "What does this have to do with me?" Rebecca reached into her jacket and pulled out a small data pad. She slid it across the table to Marcus. 3 days ago, our doctor found something. The medicine we need exists. It is here on this station." Marcus picked up the data pad and looked at the screen. It showed the layout of a large ship with several areas marked in red. "This looks like a Valdari cargo vessel." "The Stellar Dominion," Rebecca said. "It is docked at Arm 7. The ship is carrying medical supplies to Valdari colonies. Among those supplies is something called Biosynth 7. Our doctor says it is the only thing that can save our people." Marcus studied the ship layout more carefully. The Stellar Dominion was a heavy cruiser designed for long trips between star systems. It was at least 3 times bigger than any ship Marcus had ever tried to break into. The areas marked in red were deep inside the ship, protected by multiple layers of security. "This is not a cargo ship," Marcus said slowly. "This is a military vessel. Look at these power readings. Look at the shield generators. Why would a military ship be carrying medical supplies?" Rebecca looked uncomfortable. "I do not know. I just know the medicine is there." Marcus set down the datapad and looked at Rebecca carefully. Something about her story did not feel right, but he could see the fear in her eyes was real. Whether she was telling him everything or not, people were dying. "My price is 50,000 credits, Marcus said. Rebecca nodded quickly. "I can pay that. Half now, half when I deliver the medicine." She reached into her bag and pulled out a credit chip. "Here is 25,000. You will get the rest when you bring back the Biosynth 7. Marcus took the chip and slipped it into his pocket. The Valdari use quantum encryption on their security systems. Most people think it cannot be broken. "But you can break it?" Rebecca asked. Marcus smiled for the first time since sitting down. "Most people do not know what I know about Valdari security. They think their technology is perfect because it is more advanced than what other species use. But advanced does not always mean better." He stood up from the table. "Give me 2 days to study the ship and plan the job. Meet me back here in 48 hours. Rebecca grabbed his arm as he started to leave. "Please," she said. "Those people are counting on me. My little girl is counting on me." Marcus looked down at her hand on his arm, then back at her face. "I will get your medicine," he said simply. As Marcus walked away from the cafe, he thought about the job ahead of him. Breaking into a Valdari military ship would be the most dangerous thing he had ever attempted. But he had something the Valdari did not expect. In his bag was a piece of old Earth military technology that most aliens had never seen before. If his plan worked, he would be in and out of the Stellar Dominion before anyone knew he was there. If his plan failed, he would probably die in a Valdari prison cell. Marcus had been taking those kinds of chances for 30 years. He was not going to stop now. Marcus spent the next 2 days watching the Stellar Dominion from different places around Nexus Station. He sat in cafes that had views of Arm 7. He walked past the docking areas pretending to look for work. He even took a maintenance job, cleaning windows near the ship for 3 hours. The Stellar Dominion was even bigger up close than it had looked in the pictures. The ship was dark blue with silver markings that showed it belonged to the Valdari military. It had thick armor plating and weapon ports along its sides. Guard towers stuck out from the hull like metal thorns. This was not just a cargo ship. This was a warship that happened to be carrying cargo. Marcus counted 12 Valdari guards walking around the outside of the ship during each shift. They wore black armor that covered their tall blue bodies from head to toe. Each guard carried an energy rifle that could cut through steel. The guards changed shifts every 6 hours, and Marcus timed how long it took them to walk their routes. But Marcus was not worried about the guards outside the ship. He was worried about the security systems inside. The Valdari were proud of their technology. They used quantum computers to run their security networks. These computers could think faster than any human brain and could spot patterns that no normal person would notice. They could track movement, body heat, heartbeat, and even the smell of different species. Most criminals who tried to break into Valdari ships were caught before they got past the first door. Most criminals did not have what Marcus had on the second night. Marcus went back to his small room in the cheap section of the station. He locked the door and pulled his bag from under the bed. Inside the bag, wrapped in old cloth, was a metal box about the size of a book. The box was scratched and dented from years of use. It looked like junk compared to the shiny Valdari technology, but Marcus knew better. The box was an Earth military cyber warfare unit from the colonial wars 20 years ago. Back then, Earth had been fighting against rebel colonies that had stolen advanced alien technology. The rebels thought their new quantum computers would make them unbeatable. They were wrong. Earth engineers had built the cyber warfare units to fight against technology that was smarter and faster than anything humans had. The units did not try to outsmart quantum computers. Instead, they attacked them with chaos. They threw millions of random signals at enemy systems until something broke. It was like fighting a chess master by throwing the board at his head. Marcus opened the metal box and looked at the device inside. It was a mess of wires and circuit boards that had been repaired many times. Most of the writing on the circuits was in old Earth military code. The device looked primitive compared to modern alien technology, and that was exactly why it worked. Marcus closed the box and put it back in his bag. Tomorrow night, during the station's sleep cycle, he would make his move. The next evening, Marcus ate a simple meal and waited in his room until the station's lights dimmed for the sleep period. Nexus Station never truly slept, but it had quiet hours when most species rested. During these hours, there were fewer people in the corridors and fewer eyes watching the security cameras. Marcus put on dark clothes and strapped his bag to his back. He left his room and walked through the station's corridors like he belonged there. A few late-shift workers passed him, but no one paid attention to one more human walking around. When Marcus reached Arm 7, he did not go toward the main docking area where the guards were stationed. Instead, he went down to the maintenance levels below the docking arms. These areas were filled with pipes, wires, and machines that kept the station running. The air was hot and smelled like oil and ozone. Marcus had studied the station's layout during his 2 days of watching. He knew that maintenance tunnels connected all parts of the station, including the docking arms. The tunnels were designed for automated repair drones, which meant they were too small for most alien species to use. But Marcus was human, and humans were smaller than most aliens. He found the tunnel entrance he was looking for behind a water recycling unit. The tunnel was a metal tube just wide enough for Marcus to crawl through on his hands and knees. He pulled out a small flashlight and started crawling. The tunnel was hot and cramped. Marcus's knees scraped against the metal floor, and his shoulders brushed the walls on both sides. He could hear the hum of machinery all around him and feel vibrations from the station's engines. After 20 minutes of crawling, his clothes were soaked with sweat. Finally, Marcus reached a junction where several tunnels met. According to his map, he should be directly under the stellar dominion now. He looked up and saw a maintenance hatch in the ceiling. The hatch was marked with Valdari writing that probably said something like authorized personnel only. Marcus smiled in the dark. He was definitely not authorized. He pulled out a small tool and carefully opened the hatch. Cool air flowed down from above, along with the soft blue glow of Valdari lighting. Marcus listened carefully but heard no footsteps or voices. The area above the hatch seemed empty. Marcus pulled himself up through the hatch and found himself in a narrow space between the outer hull of the ship and the inner walls. This was the area where power cables and life support systems ran throughout the ship. It was like being inside the walls of a building. He moved carefully through the space, following power cables toward the center of the ship. The cables would lead him to the main computer systems, and the main computer systems would be near the security controls. After 10 minutes of crawling through the ship's guts, Marcus found what he was looking for. A junction box where dozens of cables met. The box was connected to the ship's quantum security network. This was where he would plug in his Earth military device. Marcus pulled the cyber warfare unit from his bag and connected its cables to the junction box. The device came to life with a soft beep that sounded loud in the quiet space. Green lights blinked on the front panel, showing that the device was reading the Valdari quantum network. For a moment, nothing happened. The device and the alien security system studied each other like two fighters circling before a battle. Marcus held his breath and watched the lights on his device flicker faster and faster. Then the attack began. The Earth military device started throwing random signals at the Valdari quantum computer. Thousands of fake sensor readings, false alarm codes, and nonsense data packets flooded into the security network. The quantum computer tried to process all the information at once, looking for patterns and threats, but there were no patterns. There was only chaos. Marcus watched his device work and smiled. The Valdari thought their quantum computers were perfect because they were fast and smart. But sometimes the best way to beat something smart was to be completely stupid. The lights on his device turned from green to yellow, which meant the first layer of security was breaking down. Soon he would have access to the ship's internal systems. Soon he would be able to find the medical bay where the Biosynth 7 was stored. Marcus had no idea that his stupid device was about to cause problems much bigger than he had planned. Marcus watched the lights on his device change from yellow to orange. The Valdari security system was fighting back harder now, but his Earth military unit was winning. Random data continued to flood the quantum computer, making it work harder and harder to find real threats among all the fake signals. After 5 more minutes, the device made a soft chime sound. The orange lights turned green. Marcus had broken through the first security layer. He pulled out a small tablet and connected it to his device. Information from the Valdari ship's computer system began flowing across his screen. Ship layouts, cargo manifests, crew schedules, and security protocols appeared in neat blue text. Marcus smiled as he scrolled through the data. The medical bay was on Deck 5. Section C, according to the cargo manifest, the ship was carrying medical supplies to 3 different Valdari colonies. Among those supplies was a large container marked Biosynth 7, medical research only. That was what Rebecca Torres needed for her dying colony. Marcus started to disconnect his device, but then he noticed something strange. The security system was not just letting him in anymore. It was actively helping him. Doors that should have been locked were showing as open. Security cameras were turning off by themselves. Even the gravity generators were adjusting to make it easier for him to move through the ship. This was not normal. Marcus had broken into many alien ships over the years, and security systems did not usually become friendly once you hacked them. They fought back until they were completely destroyed. But the Valdari quantum computer seemed to be welcoming him deeper into the ship. Marcus felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. Something was going very wrong. He tried to pull his device away from the junction box, but the connections had somehow locked themselves in place. The cables would not come free no matter how hard he pulled. His device was now permanently connected to the Valdari security network. The lights on his device began flashing faster. Instead of the steady green glow that meant everything was working, normally the lights were now blinking red and orange and blue in rapid patterns. The device was still sending random signals into the Valdari computer, but now the computer was sending signals back. Marcus grabbed his tablet and watched in horror as information continued to flow across the screen. But now the information was not just about the stellar dominion. He was seeing data from other ships docked at Nexus Station, security codes from alien vessels he had never seen before, defense protocols from species he could not even identify. His simple hack of one Valdari ship had somehow connected him to every security network in the spaceport. The Valdari quantum computer had not been trying to stop his device. It had been trying to understand it. And once it understood the chaotic signals coming from the Earth military unit, it had decided those signals were a new type of communication. The quantum computer had connected Marcus's device to every other security system it could reach. Thinking it was sharing important information with allied networks, Marcus tried to shut down his device, but the power switch would not respond. The device was drawing power directly from the ship's systems now. It had become part of the Valdari network, and the network was not going to let it go. Suddenly, a loud alarm began blaring inside the stellar dominion. The sound was so loud that Marcus had to cover his ears. Red lights flashed in the narrow space where he was hiding. Emergency messages in the Valdari language echoed through the ship's speakers, but the alarm was not just coming from the stellar dominion. Through the walls of the ship, Marcus could hear other alarms starting up. First one, then two, then dozens of different alarm sounds mixing together in a horrible symphony. Marcus crawled to a small window in the outer hull and looked out at Nexus Station. What he saw made his blood run cold. Every ship docked at the station was flashing with emergency lights. Security drones were launching from their docking bays and swarming through the space around the station. Defense turrets were extending from the station's arms and searching for targets. Emergency. BROADCAS were playing in dozens of different alien languages. The entire spaceport thought it was under attack. Marcus realized what had happened. His Earth military device had been designed to attack enemy computer systems by flooding them with chaos. But the Valdari quantum computer had interpreted that chaos as intelligence data about a massive enemy force. When the quantum computer shared that data with other security networks, they all came to the same conclusion. Someone was attacking Nexus Station with an army so large and so advanced that it could only be detected as background noise in their security systems. Every species in the spaceport was now looking for an enemy that did not exist. Marcus grabbed his tablet and tried to send a shutdown command to his device, but nothing happened. The device was no longer under his control. It had become part of something much bigger than he had planned. Through his tablet, Marcus could see security reports flooding in from all over the station. Valdari guards were searching their ships for intruders. Human Defense Corps soldiers were scanning for hidden weapons. Alien species he had never heard of were activating war protocols that had not been used in decades. Captain Vex of the Valdari Security Division was coordinating the search from the command center of the Stellar Dominion. His voice came through the ship's communication system, speaking in heavily accented human English so that all species could understand. All units, this is command. We have detected a massive security breach affecting multiple networks. Unknown. Attackers have penetrated our quantum encryption using advanced warfare techniques. All ships are to maintain high alert status until the threat is identified and eliminated. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to think. He had wanted to quietly steal some medical supplies and disappear. Instead, he had accidentally convinced every alien in the spaceport that they were about to be destroyed by an invisible army. More alarms joined the chorus outside. Marcus could hear the heavy footsteps of armored guards running through the corridors of the Stellar Dominion. They were searching every room, every storage bay, every maintenance area. Soon they would find the junction box where his device was connected. Soon they would find him, but Marcus had a bigger problem than just getting caught. His device was still sending chaotic signals into the security networks. Every second it stayed connected, the situation was getting worse. More ships were joining the alert. More weapons were being powered up. More species were preparing for a war that would never come. If Marcus could not find a way to stop his device, the panic he had accidentally created might turn into real violence. Frightened aliens with powerful weapons might start shooting at each other. Thinking everyone else was part of the mysterious attack force, Marcus looked at his tablet one more time and saw something that made his heart race. Deep in the security reports, he found references to human colony bioweapons and terrorist medical theft. Someone was connecting his presence on the station to the medical supplies he was trying to steal. Rebecca Torres had not told him the whole truth. The Biosynth 7 was not just medicine for a sick colony. It was connected to something much more dangerous. And now that connection was about to be discovered by every security force in the spaceport. Marcus grabbed his bag and started crawling toward the nearest exit. He had to get away from his device before the guards found it. He had to find Rebecca and demand the truth about what he had really been hired to steal. But first, he had to survive the chaos he had accidentally created. Outside the ship, the alarms continued to wail as hundreds of armed aliens searched for an enemy that was just one human smuggler with a 30-year-old piece of Earth military junk. Marcus crawled through the maintenance spaces inside the Stellar Dominion as fast as he could. Behind him, he could hear the heavy boots of Valdari guards getting closer. Their voices echoed through the ship as they searched every room and corridor. Sector 7 clear, one guard reported over the communication system. Sector 8 clear, said another. Keep searching, came the voice of Captain Vex. The intruder must be somewhere on this ship. No one could have penetrated our security from the outside. Marcus reached another maintenance hatch and carefully opened it. He was now in a different part of the ship, far from where he had connected his device. The corridor outside the hatch was empty, but he could hear guards searching nearby rooms. He slipped out of the maintenance space and started walking quickly toward the exit ramps. If he could get off the ship and back into the station, he might be able to hide among the crowds of panicked aliens, but as Marcus turned a corner, he came face to face with two Valdari guards. They were tall and blue-skinned, wearing black armor that made them look like metal giants. Their energy rifles were already pointed at him. "Human," one of them said in accented English. "You will come with us." Marcus raised his hand slowly. "I think there has been a mistake. I am just a maintenance worker." The second guard stepped closer. His rifle hummed with deadly energy. "Our sensors detected human DNA traces near the security breach. You are the only human on this ship." Marcus knew he had only one chance. The Valdari were strong and fast, but they were not used to fighting humans. Most aliens thought humans were weak because they were smaller than other species. They did not know that humans had learned to fight dirty during centuries of war on Earth. Marcus suddenly dropped to the floor and rolled between the legs of the first guard. The Valdari was so tall that there was plenty of room for Marcus to slide underneath him. Before the guards could turn around, Marcus was running down the corridor as fast as he could. Energy blasts from their rifles lit up the walls behind him. As he ran, the shots missed him by inches, leaving smoking holes in the metal walls. Marcus turned another corner and kept running. "Intruder on deck 4, one of the guards shouted into his communicator. Human male, heading toward the exit ramps. More guards appeared at the end of the corridor ahead of Marcus. He was trapped between two groups of armed Valdari. But Marcus had been in worse situations before. He looked around quickly and saw what he needed. An emergency airlock was built into the wall nearby. It was designed to let people escape if the ship was damaged in battle. Marcus ran to the airlock and slammed his hand on the emergency release button. The airlock door opened with a loud hiss. Beyond it was a narrow tube that connected to the station's emergency evacuation system. Marcus jumped into the tube just as energy blasts from the Valdari rifles lit up the space where he had been standing. The tube was like a water slide, but instead of water, it used air pressure to push people toward safety. Marcus slid through the tube at high speed, bouncing off the walls as it curved and twisted through the station's structure. He shot out of the tube and landed hard on a pile of soft padding in one of the station's emergency shelters. The shelter was full of aliens who had evacuated from their ships when the alarm started. They all stared at Marcus as he picked himself up and brushed off his clothes. "Sorry," Marcus said. "Wrong turn." Before anyone could ask questions, Marcus walked out of the shelter and back into the main corridors of Nexus Station. The station was in complete chaos. Security forces from dozens of different species were running in all directions. Some aliens were trying to evacuate. Others were setting up defensive positions. A few were arguing loudly about who was responsible for the attack. Marcus pulled up his hood and tried to blend in with the crowd, but it was difficult. Most of the aliens were much taller than him, and his human appearance made him stand out. He needed to find Rebecca Torres and get answers about what he had really been hired to steal. As Marcus made his way through the station, he heard different alien species talking about the crisis. The translations came through speakers built into the walls. "The Korthic Defense Force is mobilizing all units," announced a voice that sounded like grinding rocks. "We believe this attack is connected to the territorial disputes in the Outer Rim. Zephyrian intelligence has detected unusual energy signatures," said another voice that whistled like wind. "The attackers may be using stealth technology we have never seen before." "All human vessels are being searched," came a third voice that Marcus recognized. It was Commander Stone of the Human Defense Corps. "We need to determine if this is connected to human colonial activities." Marcus stopped walking. The Human Defense Corps was now involved in the search. Commander Stone was a good soldier who followed orders, but he was not stupid. If he found evidence connecting Marcus to the security breach, he would arrest him. Without hesitation, Marcus needed to move faster. He pushed through the crowd toward the section of the station where he had met Rebecca. But as he walked, he started noticing things that made him worried. Several areas of the station that had been locked before were now open. Security doors that required special access codes were standing wide. Storage areas marked with warning signs had been unsealed. Even some of the restricted zones where dangerous materials were kept had been unlocked. Marcus realized that his hacking device had done more than just trigger alarms. It had somehow disabled security systems throughout the station. Doors that should have stayed closed were now open. Containment fields that should have kept dangerous things locked away were now failing. As Marcus walked past one of the unsealed storage areas, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A group of alien prisoners in orange uniforms were walking out of what had clearly been a detention center. They were not running or fighting. They were just walking away calmly, as if the doors had opened for them. One of the prisoners was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and 4 arms. Marcus had seen pictures of his species before. They were called wraiths, and they were some of the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. This particular wraith had scars on his face that suggested he had survived many battles. The wraith looked directly at Marcus as he walked past. For a moment their eyes met. Then the wraith smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth, and disappeared into the crowd of panicked aliens. Marcus walked faster. His simple plan to steal medical supplies had somehow released dangerous criminals into the station. The situation was getting worse by the minute. Finally, Marcus reached the cafe where he had met Rebecca. But when he looked inside, he saw that she was not alone. 3 other humans were sitting at her table. They were all wearing the simple clothes of colony workers, but Marcus could tell from the way they sat and watched the door that they were not ordinary colonists. One of them was a woman with short red hair and the kind of scars that came from fighting. Another was a man with mechanical parts replacing his left arm. The third was younger, maybe 20 years old, but his eyes were hard and cold. These were not desperate colonists trying to save their families. These were soldiers. Marcus approached the table carefully. Rebecca looked up when she saw him, and he could see relief and fear mixed in her expression. "Marcus," she said quietly, "we need to talk." "Yes," Marcus said, sitting down across from her, "we definitely need to talk. Starting with who these people are and what you really hired me to steal." The woman with red hair leaned forward. "My name is Kate Morrison. This is Jake Wilson and Tommy Chun. We are not from New Terra Colony." "Then where are you from?" Marcus asked. Kate Morrison looked around to make sure no one was listening, then spoke in a voice so quiet Marcus had to lean in to hear her. "We are from the human resistance. And the Biosynth 7 you were hired to steal is not medicine. It is the antidote to a bioweapon that the Veldari have been using to kill human colonies for the past 6 months. Marcus felt like he had been punched in the stomach. "What?" "The Veldari are not just arrogant," Jake Wilson said, flexing his mechanical arm. "They are genocidal. They have been testing biological weapons on remote human settlements. Entire colonies have been wiped out, and the galaxy thinks it is just disease outbreaks." Tommy Chen pulled out a data tablet and slid it across the table. "Look at this. Medical records from 12 human colonies that have been attacked. The symptoms are identical. The Veldari created a weapon that kills slowly so no one would suspect murder." Marcus looked at the data on the tablet. The symptoms described were exactly what Rebecca had told him about her colony. Tiredness, headaches, loss of appetite, pale skin. But now Marcus understood that these were not natural disease symptoms. They were the signs of deliberate poisoning. "How many people?" Marcus asked quietly. 30,000 so far, Kate Morrison said. "And they are planning to expand the program. The Biosynth 7 on that ship is not just the antidote. It is also the template they use to make more of the bioweapon." Marcus closed his eyes and tried to process what he was hearing. His hack had not just been a simple theft gone wrong. He had accidentally exposed a genocide program that could kill millions of humans. And now, thanks to the chaos he had created, evidence of that program was about to be discovered by every species in the spaceport. Marcus stared at the data on Tommy Chun's tablet. 30,000 humans dead, 12 colonies wiped out. All because the Veldari wanted to test their biological weapons on people they considered inferior. "Show me everything," Marcus said quietly. Kate Morrison pulled out another device and connected it to the table's display screen. Images appeared showing human settlements before and after the attacks. The before pictures showed busy colonies, with families working in fields and children playing in the streets. The after pictures showed empty buildings and mass graves. It started 8 months ago with a small mining colony called Haven's Rest, Kate explained. The Valdari said it was a new disease from an alien plant. They offered to help, but their medicine did not work. Everyone died within 6 weeks. Jake Wilson pointed to another image. Then it was New Shanghai Colony. Same symptoms, same timeline. The Valdari again offered help, and again their medicine failed. But this time, one of our doctors noticed something strange. The image on the screen changed to show medical scan results. The disease was not spreading like a natural infection. It was affecting people in patterns that made no sense. Some families got sick while their neighbors stayed healthy, even though they lived in the same buildings and breathed the same air. That is when we realized it was not a disease at all, Tommy said. It was a weapon designed to look like a disease. The Valdari were choosing who lived and who died. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. How did they deliver the weapon? Medical supplies, Rebecca Torres said for the first time since Marcus had sat down. The Valdari offered free medicine to human colonies that were having trouble with real diseases. Cancer treatments, infection cures, vitamin supplements. But some of those supplies were poisoned. Kate Morrison changed the image again. We finally figured out the pattern 3 months ago. Every colony that was attacked had recently received medical aid from the Valdari Consortium. The poisoned supplies were mixed in with real medicine so no one would suspect anything. The Biosynth 7 serves 2 purposes, Jake explained. It is the antidote that can save people who have been poisoned. But it is also the template they use to create new batches of the bioweapon. If we can steal it, we can save the colonies that are still sick and prevent future attacks. Marcus looked around the table at the 4 resistance fighters. Why did you not tell me this from the beginning? Because most smugglers would not take a job this dangerous if they knew the truth, Rebecca said. We needed someone good enough to break into a Valdari military ship, but we could not risk them saying no. And now? Marcus asked. Now the whole station knows something is wrong, Kate said. Your hack has created chaos, but it has also created an opportunity. Security systems are failing all over the station. Doors that should be locked are open. Computer networks that should be separate are connected. Tommy Chen smiled for the first time since Marcus had met him. Your old Earth military device did not just break into the Valdari ship. It broke into everything, including the classified databases where they keep records of their bioweapon program. Marcus felt a spark of hope. You mean the evidence is available now? More than available, Jake said. It is being broadcast across the station's communication networks. Every species here is seeing Valdari military reports about biological weapon tests on human populations. They are seeing the real medical data that proves the colonies were murdered, not killed by disease. Kate Morrison pulled up another screen showing communication intercepts from around the station. Listen to this. This is a transmission from the Korthik Defense Force to their homeworld. A voice like grinding stones came through the speakers. Command, we have discovered evidence of Valdari biological warfare against human settlements. Request instructions on whether this violates our non-aggression treaty with the consortium. Another transmission followed, this one from the Zephyrian Intelligence Service. Home Fleet, the humans were correct about Valdari genocide activities. Recommend immediate review of all trade agreements with consortium worlds. Marcus began to understand what was happening. The other species are turning against the Valdari. Not just turning against them, Rebecca said. They are realizing that if the Valdari would use bioweapons against humans, they might use them against anyone. Every species in the galaxy is now wondering if they might be next. Jake Wilson stood up from the table. But we still need to get the Biosynth 7. There are still colonies out there that are dying. The political situation will not save them fast. Enough. Marcus looked back toward the section of the station where the Stellar Dominion was docked. Security forces were still swarming around all the ships, but now they were not just looking for intruders. They were looking for evidence of war crimes. "The ship will be crawling with investigators from every species," Marcus said. "Getting back inside will be impossible." "Not necessarily," Tommy said. He pulled up a schematic of the station on his tablet. "Your device is still connected to the Valdari security network. That means you still have access to their systems." Kate Morrison leaned forward. "We do not need you to go back to the ship. We need you to use your connection to move the Biosynth 7 to us." Marcus looked confused. "How?" "The station has automated cargo systems," Jake explained. "Robotic arms that move supplies between ships and storage areas. If you can access those systems through your device, you can order them to transfer the Biosynth 7 container from the Valdari ship to a neutral storage bay. And then we can pick it up during all the chaos," Rebecca added. Marcus thought about the plan. It was risky, but it might work. I would need to get back to my device to send the commands. "That might be easier than you think," Tommy said. He pointed to his tablet, which was showing security camera feeds from around the station. "Look at what is happening on the Stellar Dominion." The screen showed Valdari guards evacuating their ship. Captain Vex was leading his crew toward the station's security center, leaving only a skeleton crew on board. Other alien investigators were setting up mobile command posts near the ship, but they were not going inside yet. "They are abandoning their own ship?" Marcus asked. "Captain Vex knows that every piece of evidence on that ship proves his people are war criminals," Kate sighed. "He is trying to get to the station's central computers to delete the data before other species can analyze it." Jake Wilson smiled grimly. "But he does not know that your device has already copied everything to multiple networks. The evidence is out there now, and there is no way to stop it." Marcus stood up from the table. "Then let's finish this. Where do you want me to move the Biosynth 7? Tommy handed him a data chip. "Storage Bay 47 in the neutral zone. It is controlled by the station authority, not any single species. Once the container is there, we can claim it as evidence of Valdari war crimes." Marcus took the chip and put it in his pocket. "Give me 30 minutes to get back to my device. Monitor the cargo systems and be ready to move when the transfer happens." As Marcus started to leave, Rebecca grabbed his arm. "Marcus, thank you. I know we lied to you about the job, but you are saving more lives than you know." Marcus looked down at her hand, then back at her face. For the first time since this whole mess started, he smiled. 30 years I have been a smuggler. I have moved a lot of things for a lot of people, but I have never moved something that mattered this much." He walked away from the table and back into the chaos of Nexus Station. Around him, aliens from dozens of species were arguing, investigating, and preparing for what might become a galaxy-wide conflict. But Marcus was not thinking about politics or war. He was thinking about 30,000 dead humans and the chance to make sure it never happened again. His simple theft had accidentally become something much bigger. Now he was going to make sure it counted. Marcus made his way back toward the Stellar Dominion, where his old Earth military device was still flooding alien computer networks with chaos. It was time to turn that chaos into justice. Part 6. The resolution. Marcus made his way back through the chaos of Nexus Station toward the Stellar Dominion. The corridors were still filled with aliens arguing about the evidence his hack had revealed. Security forces from different species were setting up barriers around the Valdari ship, but they were not trying to stop people from leaving. They were trying to stop the Valdari from destroying evidence. When Marcus reached Arm 7, he could see that most of the Valdari guards had indeed abandoned their ship. Only 2 guards remained at the main entrance, and they looked nervous. Captain Vex and his senior officers were nowhere to be seen. Marcus smiled grimly. Captain Vex was probably in the station's computer center right now, trying desperately to delete files that no longer existed only on Valdari systems. Thanks to Marcus's device, the evidence of genocide had been copied to dozens of different networks. Controlled by different species, Marcus found a maintenance entrance that the investigators had not yet discovered. He slipped inside the ship and made his way back through the maintenance spaces to where his device was still connected to the Valdari security network. The device was exactly where he had left it, still blinking with red and orange lights as it continued to flood the quantum computer with chaotic signals. But now Marcus could see that the chaos was working in his favor. Security doors throughout the ship were unlocked. Emergency protocols were active. Even the artificial intelligence that controlled the ship's cargo systems was responding to outside commands. Marcus pulled out the data chip that Tommy Chun had given him and connected it to his device. The chip contained instructions for the station's automated cargo systems. Within seconds, his device had sent those instructions through the Valdari network and into the station's main computers. On his tablet, Marcus watched as robotic cargo arms began moving on the outside of the Stellar Dominion. The arms were designed to transfer supplies between ships quickly and efficiently. Now they were following his orders to locate and move one specific container. The robotic arms found the Biosynth 7 container in the ship's medical bay and carefully lifted it out through an external cargo port. Marcus watched on his tablet as the container was transferred through a series of automated systems toward Storage Bay 47 in the neutral zone of the station. But as the container moved, Marcus noticed something else happening on his tablet. Security alerts were appearing from all over the station. Not alerts about his hack, but alerts about the Valdari themselves. Captain Vex and his officers had been arrested by station security while trying to delete evidence from the central computers. Other Valdari personnel throughout the station were being detained for questioning. Ships from the Valdari Consortium were being ordered to remain docked until investigations could be completed. Marcus realized that the galaxy-wide political situation was changing in real time. Species that had been allies of the Valdari for decades were now treating them as war criminals. Trade agreements were being suspended. Military alliances were being questioned. His simple theft had accidentally triggered a diplomatic revolution. Marcus heard footsteps approaching through the ship's corridors. He quickly disconnected his tablet and started to leave, but then he stopped. His Earth military device was still connected to the Valdari network, still sending chaotic signals that were keeping security systems disabled throughout the station. If he left the device connected, it would eventually be discovered. The Valdari would study it and learn how to defend against similar attacks in the future. But if he disconnected it now, some security systems might come back online before all the evidence had been secured. Marcus made his decision. He pulled a small explosive charge from his bag and attached it to the junction box where his device was connected. The charge was not big enough to damage the ship, but it would completely destroy the device in the junction box, making it impossible for anyone to figure out exactly how the hack had been accomplished. Marcus set a 5-minute timer on the charge and started crawling back toward the maintenance exit. He had just enough time to get off the ship before the explosion. As he crawled through the narrow spaces, Marcus heard voices in the corridors below. They were not speaking Valdari. They were speaking the clicking language of the Korthak and the whistling language of the Zephyrians. Investigators from multiple species were now searching the ship for evidence. Marcus reached the maintenance exit and slipped out of the ship just as the timer on his explosive charge reached 0. A small explosion echoed through the Stellar Dominion, followed by the sound of electrical systems shutting down. Emergency lights came on throughout the ship as its main computer network finally died. Marcus walked quickly away from the ship and back toward the neutral zone of the station. Behind him, he could hear aliens shouting about the explosion, but they would find nothing useful in the wreckage. His device and all evidence of how the hack had been accomplished were now just melted metal and burned circuits. When Marcus reached Storage Bay 47, he found Kate Morrison, Jake Wilson, Tommy Chun, and Rebecca Torres waiting for him. The Biosynth 7 container was sitting on a cargo platform in the center of the bay, surrounded by investigators from the Galactic Health Organization. It worked, Rebecca said when she saw Marcus. The container is officially being held as evidence of biological warfare, but the investigators have agreed to let us take samples for the colonies that are still sick. Dr. Sarah Kim, a human scientist working with the Galactic Health Organization, approached Marcus with a small case. "Mr. Kane, this contains enough Biosynth 7 to treat 5,000 people. We are producing more as quickly as possible, but this should save the most critical cases." Marcus took the case and handed it to Rebecca. "Make sure it gets to the people who need it." Jake Wilson clapped Marcus on the shoulder. "What you did today changed everything. The evidence your hack revealed is already being presented to the Galactic Council. The Valdari Consortium is finished as a major power. And more importantly," Tommy-chan added, "no more human colonies will die from their bioweapons. Other species are now watching too closely for the Valdari to continue their genocide program." Marcus looked around at the resistance fighters and the investigators. A few hours ago, he had been a simple smuggler trying to steal some medical supplies. Now he was standing in the middle of a galactic incident that would be remembered for centuries. Commander Stone of the Human Defense Corps approached the group. Marcus tensed, expecting to be arrested, but the commander's expression was not hostile. "Mr. Kane," Commander Stone said formally, "I am required to inform you that breaking into alien military vessels is illegal under galactic law." Marcus nodded. "I understand." Commander Stone paused, then continued. "However, given the extraordinary circumstances and the evidence of genocide that your actions revealed, the Human Defense Corps is prepared to classify your activities as emergency intelligence gathering in defense of human colonies." Marcus blinked in surprise. "You are not arresting me?" "On the contrary," Commander Stone said with a slight smile. "I am offering you a job. The Defense Corps could use someone with your particular skills and your willingness to take risks for the right reasons." Marcus looked at the resistance fighters, then back at Commander Stone. After 30 years of operating on the edge of the law, he was being offered a chance to work on the right side of it. "What kind of job?" Marcus asked. "The same kind of work you have been doing," Commander Stone said. "But instead of working for criminals and smugglers, you would be working to protect human colonies from threats like this one." Marcus thought about the 30,000 humans who had died from Valdari bioweapons. He thought about the colonies that were still dying and the ones that would be saved by the medicine he had helped steal. He thought about Rebecca Torres and her 8-year-old daughter Emma. "When do I start?" Marcus said. Commander Stone handed him a datapad. "As soon as you sign this. Your first mission will be investigating reports of forced labor camps in the Outer Rim. It seems the Valdari were not just using bioweapons to kill humans, they were also enslaving the survivors." Marcus signed the datapad without reading the details. After 30 years of running from the law, he was finally ready to run toward justice instead. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of a Human Defense Corps ship and watched as the first transport filled with rescued human slaves departed from a former Valdari labor camp. The camp had been liberated by a joint task force of human and alien forces, all working together to clean up the mess the Valdari Consortium had left behind. Rebecca Torres approached him carrying a small girl with bright eyes and a big smile. "Marcus, I want you to meet someone. This is my daughter Emma." Emma looked up at Marcus with the fearless curiosity that only children possess. "Mommy says you are the man who saved our colony." Marcus knelt down to Emma's level. "I had a lot of help, and I could not have done it without your mother." Emma nodded seriously, then smiled. "Thank you for saving us. When I grow up, I want to help save people too." Marcus looked at Emma, then at Rebecca, then out at the transport ships carrying thousands of freed humans back to their families. His old Earth military device had been destroyed, but its legacy lived on in the freedom of people who might otherwise have died in slavery.